Hi, and welcome to the Environmental Expose, a channel dedicated to uncovering the urgent environmental challenges of our time. My name is Joey Smallwood, and I'll be presenting this with the lovely, fearless, but sleeping Leilani. When she's awake next time, hopefully we'll get the camera out and include her. Today we're going to confront a critical issue. This is a beautiful view here where I also wanted to share my location. We're in lovely New Mexico, United States of America. This is a view of southern New Mexico, a little far from me, a place called Ski Apache. Okay, so moving back on, today we are going to discuss a critical issue, Project 2025. Developed by the Heritage Foundation and over 100 conservative organizations, this blueprint proposes sweeping policy changes that threaten to dismantle decades of environmental protections. These policies could devastate ecosystems, endanger public health, and reverse progress on climate action. But this is just one project. We're going to be discussing quite a bit more than that on this channel. It's part of a larger war on the truth that we're going to try to fight here. It's a deliberate attempt to undermine science and silence those of us who dare to speak out. As Desmond Tutu reminds us, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. Our natural world cannot advocate for itself. Okay, so Aldo Leopold once said, harmony with land is like harmony with a friend. You cannot cherish his right hand and chop off his left. If we fail to protect our planet, we risk losing the beauty, resources, and balance it provides forever. So let's go into Project 2025, and let's begin here with what Earth Justice has to say. Project 2025 means gutting key environmental laws. We'll fight back. Now, Earth Justice here highlights that Project 2025 is going to gut the Endangered Species Act, remove the need for national monuments, weaken the Clean Air Act, and it's also going to undermine key portions of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Let's have a look here into the document itself, and we can see on page 565, it says, quote, finally, the new administration must seek repeal of the Antiquities Act of 1906, which permitted emergency action by a president long before statutory authority existed for the protection of special federal lands, such as those with wild and scenic rivers, endangered specials, I'm pretty sure they mean to say species there, or other unique places. So we're just getting started, and it's already a little bit horrifying. Let's have a look at page 2 of Earth Justice's Project 2025 analysis. This is a 13-page analysis they put together, and they write, quote, they're discussing an analysis from Energy Innovation, which we'll have a look at. They write, quote, Project 2025 would increase carbon emissions by 2.7 billion tons by 2030, equivalent to the annual emissions of India. These policies would not only put U.S. climate targets out of reach, they would cost households $32 billion in higher energy costs, resulting in 1.7 million lost jobs and decrease the U.S. GDP $320 billion by 2030. And here we see the Energy Innovations actual study, and it says here that our model finds the continued climate leadership scenario creates more jobs, increases GDP, improves public health, and generates more household energy savings compared to the suite of Project 2025 policy. Incremental crude oil production can increase going forward under Project 2025 studies plans, and it also same thing with natural gas. And we see that their productions there for the actual annual emissions with this increased leasing are just astronomical. Increased fuel price changes, once again, astronomical. And if you want to go into this, I'm going to have all these descriptions in the study. I'm just trying to go through all this kind of quickly, and we can dive into any of this more deeply if anybody wishes to. Please just let me know in the comments. So here we have the majority of Americans. Okay, so once again, now we're looking in the Pew Research Center, and the date on this is June 28th, 2023. The majority of Americans say too little is being done on key areas of environmental protections. 63% of adults say the federal government is doing too little to protect the quality of lakes, rivers, and streams. Meanwhile, Project 2025 is going to start discussing about returning to the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. So there was just a sale that occurred on the Arctic Refuge held by the Biden administration. That was because the 2017 Tax Act from Trump required the Department of Interior to hold 2 Arctic Refuge lease sales before the end of 2024. So that was the second. The first generated a mere 1% of projected revenue promised to American taxpayers when Congress approved the leasing mandate. Although the volume of recoverable oil in the refuge is unknown, climate scientists have warned for decades that extracting and burning any amount of oil will accelerate climate change consequences such as droughts, heat waves, wildfires, and extreme storm events. I think we've all seen some of that this year in 2024. Pumping oil from the Arctic Refuge won't result in lower oil prices, according to the Federal Energy and Information Administration. And building the necessary infrastructure would take decades. Drilling for oil in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is all risk with no reward, said Earth Justice Attorney Eric Grafe. Sierra Club, once again looking at the same energy innovation study on August 14th, 2024, they write, the report shows that by 2030, compared to currently enacted policy, Project 2025 would result in 1.7 million jobs lost, once again $320 billion in reduced GDP, more than 2,000 premature deaths from exposure to air pollution. New study shows disastrous effects of Project 2025 would have on climate and public health. And I don't know how to get to the next tab behind my icon for recording. Let's just close it. And then, yeah, that's how we get there. So, another Sierra Club article here, analysis. What is Project 2025 and why would it be devastating for the environment? And Project 2025 highlights eliminating rolling back of safeguards to protect Americans' access to clean air, clean drinking water, and protected public lands. Dismantling the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the largest piece of climate legislation in American and I believe international history. And that has already created more than 300,000 new jobs and eliminating tax credits and rebates that are helping electrify homes and businesses across the country. Handing our public lands over to oil and gas companies to drill whenever and wherever they want, including in some of our most precious and pristine public lands, while leaving us to deal with the pollution and toxic waste they leave behind. Halting all government action to reach our climate goals, putting Americans and the U.S. economy at further risk of more extreme weather and a faster warming planet. Privatizing the National Weather Service and preventing it from forecasting extreme weather events and providing research on the advancing climate crisis. A national abortion ban and further tearing down of reproductive freedoms, rights of the LGBTQIA+ community, and freedoms to make our own healthcare decisions. Purging the federal government of anyone except far-right party loyalists, and much more. So looking back here into Project 2025, we can see on page 556, they want to conclude the programmatic review of coal leasing program, and they want to work with the congressional delegations and governors of Wyoming and Montana to restart the program immediately. So they're trying to reignite the coal industry, which is a dead industry, and they're trying to bring it back and reignite coal mining throughout our nation. So let's see, what is renewable energy? Looking here at the U.S. Department of Energy, it says renewable energy comes from unlimited, naturally replenished sources such as the sun, tides, and winds. Renewable energy can be used for electricity generation, space and water heating and cooling, and transportation. Non-renewable energy, in contrast, comes from finite sources such as coal, natural gas, and oil. And so let's see. Looking into Project 2025 on page 341, let's begin to have a look here at what they want to do to forests. So this is what they say the United States Forest Service is an administration that administers 606 million acres or 95% of the 640 million acres of surface land area managed by the federal government. So they want to be proactive on the management of these actual acres, of these areas. I do apologize for that. And they want to make programs that do not depend so heavily on burning, as who likes fire? So that's of course not going to be too popular with most people in reading this document. And so located within the USDA, the Forest Service, they want to instead focus on addressing the precipitous annual amassing of biomasses that drives the behavior of wildfires. However, they are seeking, instead of just thinning, they want to increase timber sales. And if you look here on this document, it says, quote, increasing timber sales could also play an important role in the effort to change the behavior of wildfire because there would be less biomass. Timber sales and timber harvested in public forests dropped precipitously in the early 1990s and still remain very low. Not mentioned in this document anywhere, is that's because we've enacted what's called the roadless rule, and that puts inventoried roadless areas in vast areas of the Forest Service. Also not just directly mentioned in here is how they would access these areas, and that would probably mean repealing the roadless rule, or at least in many areas, and rebuilding roads or using the old road system. So going back to the quote here, for example, in 1988, the volume of timber sold and harvested by volume was about 11 billion and 12.6 billion board feet, respectively. In 2021, timber sold was 2.8 billion board feet and timber harvested was 2.4 billion board feet. So forests are basically my specialty, and so we'll do some more deep videos here about exactly why, due to climate change, we can't just go logging our forests and expect them to grow back. Regeneration is a major issue we're having, and we know these forests, especially old growth trees, are crucial for carbon dioxide sequestration. Let's have a look here at what the FSEEE stated, and I do apologize, I forget what that stands for exactly. It's the National Forest Advocates. Okay, so the National Forest Advocates state, quote, increasing timber sales could also play an important role in the effort to change wildfire where there would be less biomass. So they're quoting Project 2025, what we just read. And they write, increasing timber sales requires ramping up logging to unsustainable rates and eradicating the last remnants of U.S. old-growth forests. Even then, what Project 2025 is promoting as good capitalism, timber sales, requires massive government subsidies. Logging on public lands can no longer pay for itself because of all the large, easily accessible trees have already been cut. So let's have a look here deep into Project 2025 once again, and let's see their war on climate change here and green subsidies. Under the Biden administration, the EERE, and the EERE is the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, is a conduit for taxpayer dollars to fund progressive policies, including decarbonization of the economy and renewable resources. EERE has focused on reducing carbon dioxide emissions to the exclusion of other statutorily defined requirements such as energy security and cost. For example, EERE's 5 programmatic priorities during the Biden administration are all focused on decarbonization of the electricity sector, the industrial sector, transportation, buildings, and the agricultural sector. So going on to wetlands, here we're looking at a document here by Bleeding Heartland. It's an independent website about Iowa politics. And staff attorney with national advocacy group Food and Water Watch, Danny Replogle, states that that basically, from cleaning water and providing wildlife habitat to mitigating droughts and flooding, wetlands perform a panoply of ecosystem services, Danny writes, that benefit human health and safety. Now, Swamp Buster is basically one of the many conservation incentives that are out there for farmers to make them not farm sensitive areas that are crucial for biodiversity, specifically wetlands. And Danny writes, quote, many farmers credit the program with preventing a race to the bottom, when low farm profits might otherwise tempt farmers to drain environmentally valuable wetlands for additional crop acreage. Let's have a look here at what they write in Project 2025 on page 337. Champion the elimination of the Conservation Reserve Program. Farmers should not be paid in such a sweeping way to not farm their land. If there is a desire to ensure that extremely sensitive land is not farmed, this should be addressed through targeted efforts that are clearly connected to addressing a specific and concrete environmental harm. The USDA should work with Congress to eliminate this overbroad program. And you'll see that repeatedly in this document. A specific and concrete harm, not a theoretic harm. And they say that for pesticides. So basically what they're saying is they need to see a lot of people and animals die before they're going to ban anything or restrict any kind of activities. Project 2025 threatens marine sanctuaries. Here we're looking at a document by CAP20, that's AmericanProgress.org. Project 2025 would be a disaster for national marine sanctuaries. They write on September 9th, 2024. And we can look down in here and we see that Project 2025's proposed actions consistently prioritize extractive industry giveaways to the oil and gas industry, including through attacks on marine sanctuaries. This extreme agenda would reinstate a 2017 Trump-era mandate that directed the Department of Interior to stop the establishment of any new sanctuaries and directed the DOA to examine national marine sanctuaries established in the past decade for energy and mineral potential. And we can just have a look here. We see once again that the NRDCActionFund.org, they write on October 3rd, Trump's Project 2025 would ruin our oceans for more fossil fuels, stating, quote, Project 2025 directs the Department of Interior to maximize offshore oil and gas leasing and reinstate Trump's first-term energy agenda. So let's look into Project 2025 itself. On page 553, they are on a roll here. And they write, given the adverse national impact of Biden's war on fossil fuels, no other initiative is as important for the DOI under a conservative president than the restoration of the department's historic role managing the nation's vast storehouse of hydrocarbons, much of which is yet to be discovered. And if we let them, they'll go and discover all of that. So let's close with one last look here on page 556 of Project 2025. Conduct offshore oil and natural gas leases to the maximum extent permitted under 2023 to 2028 lease program that they are designing, with the possibility to move forward under a previously studied but unselected plan alternative. So thanks a lot. Here's another view of beautiful Leilani. Let's all stay positive and let's fight these fascists. Sending love to all.